My name's Lilly, short for Liliana. I'm a 28-year-old and live in Ottawa, Ontario, in Canada. I consider myself fairly successful in life. I have a bright and successful career and a loving family. My husband, Matthew, is a year older than me and the most wonderful husband anyone could ever ask for. We have a son, Josh, who's 3 years old. I'm pretty happy and content with my life. Mark doesn't have a large family. It's just him and his parents who live 20 minutes away from us. My family consists of my mom and my dad, my brother Jack, who just turned 16. They live back in the States in Texas. I used to live there as well, and even went to the university out there. However, after getting a splendid job offer from Canada, I decided to move there, and I soon met my now husband, Matthew, and decided to make the change permanent. Due to work and other obligations, I don't get to visit my family as much as I want. I dearly miss them, however, and wish I could see them more than once a year, which is the normal now. I have a degree in business administration from a well-reputed university, and the job I'm working at currently is involved in software sales. I get paid around $250,000 annually. Aside from that, I had recently launched a highly successful soap and other skincare product company, which did really well in its first year, and I was lucky to score some really good investors. In a nutshell, I make upwards of $300,000 annually and am currently doing very well financially. Matthew, or Matt as I call him, is similarly very successfully at the tech company he works at. I have a nice little nest egg, and so does my husband. However, my savings account would have a lot more money in it if I did not have to send money over to my parents every month. To fully understand the matter, I need to explain my relationship with my family in a little more detail. My mother, Anna, was a reputed beauty in her teenage years and loved competing in pageants and beauty talent shows. She was good at what she did and had considered making a career out of it. When she was 17, she tried out for various modeling gigs. She landed a few modeling jobs on small runways and wanted to develop her career as a model and actress. She met my dad soon after she turned 18 and they got married. My dad enlisted in the army soon after, and my mom went off to LA to make her dreams come true. She wasn't very successful in the cutthroat entertainment business, and her dreams were put on hold when she realized just a few months later she was pregnant with me. My dad was still in the army, and my mom moved back to Texas to wait for my birth. After my birth, she stepped back into the modeling industry, but ultimately had to back out of modeling gigs due to family commitments. Things got easier once my dad was discharged from the army, and she worked as a small-time model for a while. They both worked part-time as they had to look after me as well. When I was around 10 years old, she landed a role in a prime-time television show and acted for almost 2 years when I was 12. She got pregnant with my brother Jack. Despite many attempts to restart her career, she had ultimately given up on her dreams. She had grown somewhat resentful about how her career had turned over the years. She was a good mom, and for the most part, she was a great support system for me. But once I got successful, part of her felt annoyed and angry about my managing to build a good career for myself. I understand her to an extent. She had clearly had the looks and talents to make it big in the industry, but had to put her plans on hold due to getting pregnant. We had many conversations about it over the years, and after fighting a few times, we had agreed not to speak about it too much. My relationship with my dad and my brother had been great since forever. My brother was dorky, as everyone thinks their siblings are, but he was a good kid who did well in school. My dad had always been very supportive of us and was a good husband and a good father. He had developed a limp because of a minor injury while he was in the Army and could not afford to work full-time anywhere. I checked in with my family from time to time, always ready to help out financially, but for the most part, they seemed to be managing just fine. The problem began 2 years ago, when Jack was 14. As a surprise for his birthday, I'd flown him and both my parents out here to Canada, just to spend a week with me and my husband. Jack had seemed sick when he'd gotten here. He's always been a sickly small kid, so I assumed it was just because of the long flight. Soon after their arrival, he had developed a coughing fit and had said he couldn't breathe. We rushed him to the hospital, and there we found out that Jack had asthma, which has gone undiagnosed all these years. My mother was distraught, and my dad also got worried. The doctor told us that we need to take Jack to a hospital when they get back to the USA, and to get him checked out. Later that day, my mom took me aside and told me they are struggling with finances lately, and that since her and my dad weren't covered for insurance from their jobs, she didn't think they could afford to take Jack to the hospital for extended periods of time. I reassured her, telling her that I'll send over $10,000 as soon as they leave, and to tell me if they need more money. A few days after they go back, my mom called me and said that the appointment had gone very well. The doctors there had said exactly what the doctor here said. Jack had asthma, and he needed to be put on an inhaler and regular checkups for a while. She said that the consultation fee along with the test had cost about $15,000, and she would need a little bit more to get an inhaler and to fill out his prescription. I was mostly just relieved at this time that it wasn't something more serious, and told her I'll have the money sent right over. I told her that I'll send her a monthly $3,000 to help her with the bills and other finances. She thanked me and started crying, saying that I was such a good daughter and sister, and that she did not know that they would have done without me, helping them with the money and all. I was glad that I could help out my family and figured that since I made so much money, I could afford to spend some on family, who seemed to desperately need it. Hence, every month I sent them money, thinking that it was going to the hospital bills that Jack's accumulating due to the monthly checkups and refilling his prescription. And, anyways, I wasn't in the country and rarely got to see them. This way, I felt like I was still taking care of my brother without actually being present in his life. A few months later, I was talking to Jack on the phone and asked him how his health was doing, whether he was all right, and how the recent appointment had gone. He seemed a little surprised, but told me that his asthma was easily treatable and he did not need to use his inhaler even that often. In fact, he told me staying away from allergens and other risk factors generally meant that he didn't have to use it a whole lot. Later that same day, I asked my mom, what's going on? She said that Jack was young and sensitive about his recent diagnosis, since that meant he had to severely limit his sport activities, especially baseball, which he loved to play. She told me that because of this, Jack did not like talking about his condition and liked to tell people that he was well and there was nothing wrong with him. I thought this was a bit strange and a stretch, but let it go. After all, it was understandable. We all had our quirks. He was a teenager who was struggling with getting diagnosed with a lifelong condition in a very crucial learning phase of his life. I was, however, concerned that if he was really doing what Mom said he was, it was not good for him. Living in denial wasn't going to be good for him. Soon after that, I talked to my mom about this. I told her that she should see about getting him a therapist appointment if Jack felt comfortable with it. She told me that she would talk to Jack and call me right back. A few days later, she called me again and said that I would need to pay for the therapist as well, since she and Dad had been laid off and she was barely making ends meet. I was a bit annoyed at constantly being told to help out, as if it was my duty to be doing so, but I let it go. After all, it was all for the good of family. I forgot about everything until a year later, when Jack was nearing his 16th birthday. I was talking to my dad about random stuff and casually asked if he's gotten any job yet. He was really surprised and said that of course he was working on it. Why would he need to get a new job? Afterward, I asked Mom about this strange incident, and she said that Dad had gotten a job about a month ago, and that he probably did not want to worry me about a change in the subject. Something wasn't adding up. My mother's story continued to change every time I talked to her. I decided to visit them soon and figure out for myself what the matter actually was. I planned to visit them shortly after my 28th birthday, which was about 2 months away. I was going to visit them after a very long time and decided to surprise them. About 2 weeks before my birthday, I got a call from my mother. She was in tears and was barely managing to speak. I asked her what had happened, afraid that she would say something truly horrible. She said that Jack had recently gotten the flu. It had been really bad, and he's been sick for days. After the flu, he developed severe pneumonia, which, together with his asthma, had landed him in the hospital. She said that they had just admitted him straight to the ER, and that he would need lots of days in care and medicine to completely recover. He needed to have lots of x-rays and other tests too. She said that she was really scared about what was going to happen, and the hospital was on their case about paying the bill. She said that they still weren't on insurance, and it was a really scary situation just to be in it. She asked for more money again, scared about what was happening. I told her to send me the amount as soon as possible, and I would get her the money within a day. She thanked me again and told me that she needed to go get back to Jack, and that we would soon talk. After getting off the phone with my mom, I immediately transferred all the money over and set about trying to get an earlier flight. I was tied up with work commitments and other problems, and the earliest flight I could get was a week away. I spent the entire week worried and upset, full of anxiety. I could barely talk to my mom since she said that she was busy at the hospital. Mostly, she just sent me some text messages telling me how Jack's progress was doing. She finally told me that he was being discharged a day before my flight, and I breathed a sigh of relief. She said that he was doing much better and that the doctor said he would make a full recovery. The day of my flight came, I landed in good old Texas and went straight home. I got out of the car and took out my luggage, rang the doorbell, and was surprised to see Jack open the door. I asked him what he was doing out of bed and that he should just be resting. He asked me why I thought he should be resting. He said he felt perfectly fine and he wasn't sick at all. I told him about what Mom told me about him getting sick and needing to go to the hospital. He was even more surprised and said nothing like that ever happened. I went inside and my mom came out of the kitchen. She was shocked to see me and went pale as a ghost. Angrily, I asked her about all the lies and she had told. My dad came in from the backyard and asked me what I was doing there. I told him I caught a flight to see how Jack was doing. Both Dad and Jack were shell-shocked and surprised. They asked me what was wrong and I told them everything. They said that nothing like that happened and Jack had a minor accident a week ago and needed just 3 stitches on his hand. He'd slipped and fallen into the pool. After that, I asked Jack how his asthma was doing. He said that he had a very minor illness and went weeks without even using his inhaler. He also told me that he never visits the doctor for regular checkups since they said his condition's stable. Everything was starting to come together. I confronted my mom, accusing her of scamming me out of all my hard-earned money. All this time. My dad told me that he had never lost his job either. All of us ganged up on her until she finally admitted that fine, she had been asking me for money to fund her luxurious lifestyle, and that there's nothing wrong with Jack. She'd been spending the money on expensive clothes and bags. My dad asked her why she would do such a thing. She said that she had given up her dreams to raise us, her children, and since I was so rich now, I didn't need all that money. She should get her fair share of it. My father was furious, and he and my brother demanded that she gives all the money back. Well, Mom refused, saying that she was entitled to the money. No matter how hard we tried, she refused to budge, saying I was an ungrateful child who begrudged her living the lifestyle she truly deserved. The next day, my dad packed up his stuff and Jack's and they left the house, saying they did not want to live with her anymore. They weren't even hurting financially, and my dad could afford it. I offered to sponsor him and Jack to come live with us in Canada. A month later, both of them joined me there, leaving my mom behind. She was paying the price for scamming me out of my money and using Jack and my dad to lie to me, steal from me also. We were better off leaving her toxicity behind and starting over. Hey guys, Mr. Retells here. So, I was scourging through the comments and I came across a couple updates here and there. I pieced it together and it comes out like this. Turns out, Mom was using all the money to impress her sisters and rich friend. One of Mom's sister's daughters married an old man with a lot of money, and since you know what these kind of people do with money, Mom got extremely jealous and started fooling me just to get my money. I don't hate her much. I can agree with her jealousy, but emotionally blackmailing me all these years for money is bad. She could have just asked me without any shame. I love my family and I owe them a big one. I recently helped one of my cousin's sisters with her college. That's all, guys. I won't be updating anymore. Dad and brother are still living with us, and we go on a couple of vacations to other countries whenever I get time. Many years ago, I was living in a beautiful sunny southern state. I had a cute little house that was completely fenced in. 5-foot fence in front, 8 fence on the sides, and a 10-inch chain link fence in the back. I'm fortunate enough to work from home. My office was my patio unless it's raining. My dog, Sari, kept me company. At a year old, she was a big girl at 120 pounds. She was very genuinely sweet and kind of protective. She was well trained, but also had a knack for disappearing to play with her animal friends. So I kept her on a chain too if we were outside. High school kids in the area had the tendency to use the alleyway behind my house to get to and from the school. Most would stop and say hi to Sari and give her attention. She loved it. I honestly didn't mind. Well, one day, I noticed that anytime Sari was alone outside, some kids would rattle the back fence, throw things at it, then scream and yell at Sari. The kids would run off before I could see who they were. In case things got worse, I bought some security cameras and brought Sari with me anytime I went outside or inside when the kids would be around. One day, I had to grab some work in the house and left her alone. Just for a moment. From inside, I heard the fence rattle and then Sari yapped in pain. I rushed outside just in time to see a kid try to throw a rock at her. along with some other children. I was pissed. As I rushed over to Sari, I calmly asked them, "Did it ever occur to you or wonder why I keep my dog chained in, fenced?" Then I unhooked her. Sari ran at my back fence and climbed over it. The kid started running down the alleyway away, but it was barks after bark. I let her go about a half a block, then whistled for her to come back. She came trotting back, all happy as can be. I checked her over and gave her a treat. She was fine. A couple hours later, one of the kids come back with his mother, EP. This is what EP says to me. "You freaking jerk. You had your dog attack my son. He was only having a fun time. He's just a boy. He's scared. You scared him. It was just a joke. You had no right to do that. I'm calling the police. And having that dog freaking shot." I literally couldn't get a word in. Then she starts to threaten me, so I did call the police. The operator could hear her plain as day, even though entitled parent was at least 40 feet away from me. The police showed up in about 5 minutes. 2 cars. I guess they were in the area. It was 4 officers in total. All very nice guys. 2 officers come to talk to me and to talk to EP and her son. EP never stopped screaming and cussing. I explained what happened and showed the video to the officers. Show all of Sari's vets and training paperwork. I filed a report and asked to press charges. The officers are petting my dog all the while because she's demanding attention from her new friends. She has her happy face on. The 3 of us go outside towards the other group. We're about 10 feet from them when Sari suddenly cuts in front of me to stop me and starts growling. The skin around her face went tight, making it look like a hair-covered skull. The hair on her back raises up, and she was very scared. EP says, "See? That jerk raised that dog to attack black people. Freaking racist. That ducking dog needs to put down." I called back one of the officers that I had been talking to. He did not want to come too close as Sari is showing large teeth. So I moved back towards my house. As quietly as I could, I told the officer that either EP or the kid were carrying a gun. That's why my dog started getting protective. It's happened several times before. I guess to err on the side of caution, or to shut me up, he decided to search EP and the kid. EP had an unregistered gun, and the kid had a 6-inch switchblade. So, in addition to a charge of animal cruelty, they got nailed for carrying a concealed weapon, being in possession of a firearm while on probation, resisting arrest, and a couple other charges. EP never stopped screaming the entire time this happened and while be driven away. I don't think that's how EP or kid expected to end the day, but I enjoyed it. Even better, I never saw her or her kid again. And that stops the kid from harassing my dog.